Hey, it's Bisma. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back, and welcome to a brand new video. And today we are going to be doing a super exciting video. I'm going to be sharing with you guys the top 21 books of 2021. For me, I'm so excited. Please let me know down below if books that I mentioned are on the top of your list for this year. What were your favorites? What are you anticipating to read in 2022? Because I know I have a bunch, and I'm going to make a video where I talk about my anticipated releases. Also, if you have not subscribed yet and would like more bookish content from me, then go ahead and subscribe and turn on your post notifications so you never miss an upload. But without further ado, let's get on with this video. Okay, so I'm going to break my video into two sections. So section number one is going to be my romances. So these are the romances that are on the top of my list. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to start with is To Hate Adam Connor. Now this is one of my favorites, obviously why it's on my list. I really enjoy this book because of the humor, like I said. So this book follows our main character who moves into her friend's house because she is currently unemployed and does not know what she really wants to do, and her best friend just so happens to be married to this like film director and this actor guy, and next door to them is a single hot guy, and as she's living in the house, her and her friend like to peek over a little bit and check him out and see him. And one of these times while she's doing this, she ends up like saving his son from drowning, and once she saves the son, he threatens to call the police on her because he thinks that she's a stalker, and she was doing some stalkery things. But thus ensues this crazy like hate between the two of them. They both despise each other, but his son like starts to love her and wants her to babysit him, and so she agrees to babysit him, and this kind of forces them to have to speak to one another and see one another, and there the hate to love begins. And I just have to say, this is so fun. I had so much fun reading this. I love romance books like this that have hilarious characters, hilarious circumstances, and I just think the author did an amazing job. There is a first book in this which is about the best friend and the guy that she moves into the house with. If you guys want to read that, I didn't read that one, but I've heard it's really good. I want to read it. I also want to get the paperback of these two books because they're absolutely adorable. The next book I'll talk about is Hate Notes. I loved Hate Notes so much. It has that grumpy sunshine trope that I love, and it had like these crazy circumstances that only in like a rom-com or like a romance book can have. And so this book is about this girl who's going to return her wedding dress because she and her fiance have broken up, and while she's there, she tries on this other wedding dress that she thinks is stunning, and while she's trying it out, she feels on the inside of the dress that there is like a note, and so she reads it, and it's super romantic, and it has a guy's name signed there. And of course she becomes super curious, like, who is this? Like, this guy is the most romantic guy in the world. So she searches him up on Facebook and finds out that he is a realtor and that he sells like these luxury apartments and stuff. So curiosity gets the best of her, and she shows up to one of these listings, and he is very rude to her. She knows she doesn't have the money to buy that apartment. He knows she doesn't have the money to buy that apartment, and they just don't hit it off. They just get into this like tense argument, and she runs out of the place and goes to the bathroom where she meets this elderly woman who can like clearly see that she's upset, and asks her like, oh, what happened? And she tells her what happened, and out of this, the lady's like, hey, like, I can offer you a job with my grandson, blah blah blah. And of course the grandson ends up being the guy, and thus ensues them they're forced to work together because she has literally no job. In this romances, the girl is always unemployed. Is it a theme? Yes. Does it make it easier for the plot? Yes. And I clearly love them, and then they hit it off, and then it follows them as she tries to figure out like what happened to that nice lovable man who wrote that note to the bride. And there's a hate to love, and I will say there's like this stranded car scene in the rain. So if you like that type of romantic books, read it. It's really good, and the smut was good as well. So I really love that one. The book that I'll talk about is The Devil Wears Black, and now this one is a second chance romance book, and I love this one so much. It's by LJ Shen. I love LJ Shen. I think LJ Shen is an amazing writer, and she's just amazing at what she does. And this book is about these two people that broke up, but his father, the guy's father, has a terminal illness, and he wants her to pretend that they are back together and that they're actually engaged. His father thinks that they're together and that his son is going to be taken care of once he passes away, and so she agrees because she always loved his family. It's just that he wasn't willing to commit to her, so they pretend, and it follows the two of them as they have to pretend and like fake date with each other and make everybody think that they're engaged, even though they all know that they had a messy breakup. It's such a good book. I love this one because I think LJ Shed is just amazing at writing romances, and she just gets you sucked in so easily, and I think each of her premise of her books is super interesting, and the characters are always well developed and they make you feel like they're real people, and I really did enjoy this one too, and I think it's good. I think you could read any of LJ Shed's book, but I always recommend Vicious. That series is amazing. Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. I love Sally Thorne. She wrote The Hating Game, which I want to watch soon. It's now a movie, but Second First Impressions is about this girl who works at a nursing home, and this guy is the owner of the nursing home, and he has always been the wild child. He's like covered in tattoos, cannot commit to a job, does not know what he wants for his future, so his dad forces him to work there for a month, and there he becomes a personal assistant of the most grumpiest ladies at the residence of the nursing home, and they put him through all of these crazy tests, and because she works there, she has to monitor over his progress as she promised his dad, and the two of them are complete opposites, of course. Like, she's literally 20 something and she's working at a nursing home, and he's just so full of life and all of this stuff and doing crazy things, and the two of them think that they shouldn't be together because they're complete opposites. I know this is a like a romance trope that not a lot of people like, but I thought the author did a super good job in this book, and it's a quick, fast, and like super romantic book, and I think it did a really good job developing a relationship without making it seem like opposites attract only. Okay, so the next book that I'll talk about is When Heroes Fall and When Villains Rise. So this book series is actually a mafia romance, very big range here, so don't worry, I have like a recommendation for every type of romance reader. So this is my favorite mafia series ever written. I think that I will never find a series like this again. I absolutely love this series. If you are reading mafia, or you are scared to read mafia because you think that it's too crazy, I think you should read this one. Or if you're reading mafia and you feel like all the books are the same and it's not well written, this is the one for you. I think the author did an amazing job developing their relationship, and all the steam and the angst and everything was amazing in this book, and I think the mafia world was really well done in this, and the author, you can tell that the author did research. Like, it's not just basic, oh my god, like The Godfather. This is like real and it was really good. So this is about this girl who is a criminal defense attorney, and she hates the mafia because in her childhood they messed her life up quite a bit, but her sister is best friends with a guy in the mafia, and he's the leader, and of course he's the leader, but she hates him and she wants nothing to do with him, except he is on trial. His sister is begging her to represent him as his defense attorney, obviously, and she's forced to work with him, and as she works with him, they both realize that there's an attraction between them, but she absolutely despises him and his line of work, and it's all about law and evil and who is actually good and who is actually evil, and are the good guys the good guys, or the bad guys the bad guys. I love this book so much. Like, yes, the romance was good, yes, it was steamy, but I think it just delves into a lot of topics that you wouldn't expect it to, and I think they did an incredible job. The author, I just really liked it, and I think it's my favorite mafia romance. So if you are looking to get into mafia or have never read a good mafia in a while, this is the one for you. This is your side of one's own. So this is a historical fiction. We're jumping all over the romance categories. A historical romance. So this is about this girl who is a part of the suffragist movement. She's the leader. So these women want to get this act to repeal that stops women from being their husband's property as soon as they get married, and she is determined to never get married ever, until she wants to buy this publishing house because she wants to start a newspaper for women to help empower women. And what happens is that she ends up buying it, but then she finds out that the owner split it 50-50 between her and this other guy named Lord Bellantine, and he is actually from her childhood. I think he was like friends with her brother or something, or they just like grew up around each other, and he bought 50% of it, and he's like, I'll sell you back the rest of it if you do a proposition for me, if you know what I mean. And so she is forced to bear with him and work near him, and of course it's an enemies to lovers, and the banter between these two is amazing. That's why I love enemies to lovers. The banter between the two couple is unmatched. So the next book that I'll talk about is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. This would have been my top romance book, but one book just did more for me. But this is like, I'm telling you, this is a second contender. If I never read my top romance book of the year, this would be it. But I love the Brown Sisters series. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen it all over TikTok, all over YouTube. This series is by Talia Hibbert. They are an amazing writer. She is so amazing. I love her. I'm reading her other like little novellas and shorter stories, and they're really good. So she's just a good author overall, period. But this one is about the youngest sister, and she doesn't really know what she wants to do in her life. So her whole life she's kind of been babied, but her parents are tired of it. They want her to go out of the nest, figure out what she wants to do. And in one of these fights with her parents, she drives away and ends up at this little inn, and there she meets this guy who's looking for a baker, and she shows up and they just get off on the wrong foot. And as she's leaving, he chases after her, but like she runs him over, and then he gives her the job even though he told her like she couldn't get the job before. And then this unlikely friendship between them develops, and then of course it grows more, but there's like a hate to love in the middle of it, and they're both opposites of each other, so they think. And I just love it. I love like little cozy books like this where they're forced to work together in like a work environment, especially like restaurants or like an inn. I love the bed and breakfast vibes of this. It was really good, and I just love the banter between them. And he's so straightforward that you think he's being an asshole, but he's not. Like, that's just what he thinks. And it was like really refreshing. I really think he's adorable, and you think that like he's so like uptight and everything, but then when they're together and like they're talking and stuff, he's really not that uptight, and he's really adventurous, which is shocking. And if you've read that one scene in this book, you know what I'm talking about. And when you guys read that scene, if you haven't read it, you know, you're gonna know what I'm talking about. I was so shocked that his little glasses wearing self would do that, but he's so cute. I love him so much, and I think you're gonna love this series in general. So the next romance book that I'll talk about is One Last Stop by Casey McCristen. I read their other book called Red, White, and Royal Blue. Everybody on this earth has read that book, and you need to read One Last Stop if you haven't. This is like a booktube cult favorite, and it's for a reason. These are actually really, really good. And this one is about this girl who meets this other girl on the train, on the Q train. If you live in New York, you know what I'm talking about, the Q train. And she keeps meeting her every single day, and she slowly like develops a crush, and she tries to ask her out, but then they both begin to realize that she's actually stuck on the train, and then they realize that she's actually from another time period, and that they have to send her back in time. And then with the help of her friends and her, they have to like bring her back to the time that she's supposed to be at. And I really love these types of books where there's like an element of like magic, but it's set in the real world. I think that's why I loved Ninth House. I just love those types of books, like our real world but with hints of magic. I love time travel. Okay, so the next book that I'm going to talk about is From Lukov with Love. This is also a top contender. I love From Lukov with Love so much. It's a Mariana Zapata book, and I think she's a lot of people's favorites, and it's for a reason. So this is an ice skating romance. I think that's all you need to know. If you like figure skating, or you're attracted to any of the figure skaters that were at the Olympics, read this book. You're gonna love it so much. You need to read this. I loved every second of this book. It is so amazing. This book had me watching ice skating videos. I was truly unhinged when I was reading this. I loved every second of it. I'm gonna finally talk about the final last book, and that has to be The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. Now, I know everybody is obsessed with this book. I know this is everybody's favorite, but it's for a reason. And I was so shocked when I read this, because initially when I was reading this, it was really hard for me to get into, and I just like was not in the right headspace. But as soon as I started reading it, like really reading it, I fell in love with every character. I fell in love with Aaron Blackford automatically. As soon as like he opened his mouth, I was in love with him. So this follows our main character, who needs to go to Spain for a wedding, for her sister's wedding specifically. However, her ex is going to be at that wedding, and they had a very public, messy breakup in front of her family and everybody, and she's super embarrassed, and she doesn't want to show up to the wedding without a date. So she waits till the last minute, has no idea who she's going to take, and then the guy in the office that hates her and she hates him is like, I'll take you, and she's like, stop it, like you're lying, and he's like, no, I'm gonna take you. So then they end up in Spain together, having to convince her family that they've been dating for like 6 months and that they're together, and it's just so good. I loved like the Spain, like when they travel to Spain and everything like that, and all of the family moments and just all of their cute moments together. It was just so good. I really liked this, and I think you guys are gonna like it too. So go read it if you haven't read it, or if you think that it's too overhyped. It's not. I'm telling you, this book could melt like the most bitter person in the world, anti-love person. This book is so good. It's so good. Okay, so now that we're talking about my fantasy favorites, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about everybody's favorites, like the basic bitch favorites that are good, but everybody talks about them, so I'm gonna talk about them very quickly. So the first book I'll talk about is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. I love this book so much. Top tier book. This is from Nesta's point of view, and I'm pretty sure you guys know what A Court of Thorns and Roses is. It is a fantasy series that is very, very popular here on BookTube, and it is one of my favorite series and just overall comfort reads. But this, we've been waiting for this book for so long, and this book did not disappoint. This was told from Nesta's point of view, and now Nesta is my favorite character in this whole world. Like, I don't care about them as much as I care about Nesta. I related with Nesta so much. I would also say please check the trigger warnings before you read this book. It was just very, very, very well done. This is Sarah J Maas's first adventure into adult. She's been writing young adult for so long. I cannot believe that her books are even considered young adult. They're very much not, and I'm so happy that Sarah J Maas is writing adult. This book made me sob hysterically. This book brought me on the ride, on the journey, and I just cannot wait to keep reading Sarah J Maas's other books. And the next one I'll talk about is Chain of Iron. This is in the Last Hour series, and the Last Hour series follows the children of Will and Tessa from the Infernal Devices, and the Infernal Devices is one of my all-time favorite books ever, written by Cassandra Clare. I'm a huge Cassandra Clare fan, as you can see from back there, but the Infernal Devices is my favorite book series that she's ever written, and I love it so much. So reading The Last Hours is just so like touching, because I get to be back in the world with Will and Tessa, because there are characters in it. They obviously don't play a big role as they did in the other books, but I really, really love this series, and the unrequited love in this is amazing. The magic in this is amazing. I loved every second of it. I actually have a reading vlog for both Chain of Gold and Chain of Iron, which are the first two books in this series. If you have not read the series, you can definitely read the Infernal Devices and read this series. You don't need to read all of the Shadowhunter books to read it, even though I would love it if you did, but you can just read the Infernal Devices and then read The Last Hour. Blood and Ash. So I have Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. From Blood and Ash is not my favorite book in the series. Kingdom of Flesh and Fire is my favorite book currently in the series. I liked the third one, but not as much as I liked Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I think this one just picked up so well, and it was just so well developed, and I think we didn't have to like play the long game that we played from Blood and Ash, because I felt like we literally didn't know anything about the world, even though we were so invested in it. So I'm just grateful. I just had an amazing time reading this series, and this is one of the popular books of 2021, and it is really good. I would also say, going into this, don't expect the most life-changing thing ever. If you're there for a fun time, that is it. We're there for a fun time, not a long time. I'm not overly judging it. There's very much a lot of flaws in this book and the plot and stuff, but I'm just here for the smut and the vibes, and if you are here for the smut and the vibes, this romance series is perfect. Or like if you are venturing into fantasy, read the From Blood and Ash series. It is the perfect one, and it's super good, and I just had a fun time, but this one was my favorite, so I wanted to share this one. About Raybearer, or the Raybearer books. I love Raybearer so much. I think Raybearer and Redemptor are the most underrated books. I think they got a little bit of hype, but they just don't get that much hype, and I think they deserve all the hype in the world. Raybearer is just so phenomenal. It's such a good book, and it's about our main character who was born to kill the prince, but the only way that she can kill the prince is if she falls in love with him and he loves her back, and it follows them, but it's also set in like this competition style. So there's a bunch of kids like fighting for his like attention and love, and it's really good, and the stakes just get higher in every book. This is another one of those books that, like, yes, it's a young adult, but I feel like anybody can read it because of the discussions of like parents and like expectations and trauma from your parents, and parents is like all of the impact that parents have on children, and like coming into your own, and also the folklore and the magic in this is phenomenal. I cannot wait to see what the author does next, what books the author writes, because I know for a fact, just even based on these two, like this little duology, she's gonna do amazing things. I'm so sad she won't write more in this world. I get it. I hope in like a couple of years she'll come back and write more, because I would definitely read it. I'll also talk about The Poppy War. I read The Poppy War. The Poppy War is absolutely phenomenal. I think that everybody needs to read The Poppy War, but you should definitely check the triggers for this one. The Poppy War has a lot of tough elements and like tough subject matter, but I think it's so important. It's so beautifully written. It is so well done. The author, you can tell that the author has spent time researching and calculating every single thing that happens in it, and I just love books like that you can see that art is very well developed and not rushed. And I kid you not, it's like 300 something pages or like 400 pages, but it feels like I read 3 books in the span of one, and it is just so phenomenal. Like where we started in the book and where we ended is not the same, completely different. And this has that thing that I like in books where we follow the character from like childhood to like adulthood. I love that, and I love seeing the character grow, and you can see the visible change in them, but also see the similarities and just see them overcome their traumas and stuff. So this book is about this girl who is going to get married, but she doesn't want to get married, so she does her best to pass this exam that will help her get into the most elite academy in their city. So she gets accepted, but what she doesn't realize is that the competition is like studying and doing all that is not the end of what she has to do, and that she has to survive and fight for her place at the school every day. Next book that I'll talk about, Ex-Hex. So the Ex-Hex is so adorable. I love this one a lot. I read it during Halloween and it was the perfect one. It's set in a witchy town, and it's about this girl. This is her ex, and he comes back into town years later, and he is basically everything that he does is causing him to almost get killed, and so they have to work together to stop the hex, because his family is the most powerful family around, and they're the ones that regulate the other witches' magic, and they have to work together. And of course old feelings come back, old like unsaid things come back, old fights come back and stuff. So it's between the two of them, and I loved it. So I'm gonna quickly talk about A Dowry of Blood. I forgot to mention this, but I read this yesterday and I need to talk about it. So this follows our main character, who is one of the wives of Dracula, and she's recounting the centuries of abuse that she has handled at his side and being his wife. Please check the trigger warnings before you read this book, but I just think that every person needs to read this book, because I think this could really help people understand abuse and abusers. And I just feel like I read this and I need to reread this a billion times. I think I still have not fully comprehended every single thing that this author has done. Their writing is so amazing, so like well written, and makes you want to sob. I kept saying it's like hauntingly beautiful. Every part of this makes your soul ache. Like the author keeps ripping your heart out and putting it back in, and you're just watching this character experience so much heartache and so much pain throughout all of these centuries, and you're screaming at them. You want them to like realize what's happening, but they don't. But that's just how life is, and I just love how brutally honest this book is. I think that's one of the things I realized this year that I really like, is brutally honest books that force you to look at the realities of the world. Last book I'm going to talk about, and this is my all-time favorite book of 2021, and that is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I feel like nobody is shocked. I'm shocked. I didn't think I was going to love this as much, because this is a TikTok recommended. Everybody on TikTok loves this, and they have every right to. This book has overtaken my life, my brain, my whole being. I love this book so much, and I think it deserves all the hype and the recognition that it has. This follows the story of Patroclus and Achilles, who are the two main characters, and I think most of you guys know the story of Achilles. And so this follows the two of them from boyhood to adulthood, and there is this prophecy laid out that Achilles will die in war. You just fall in love and you get captured by them, and it's really good. I just love it so much, and it's my favorite, and I can't even put into words what this book is in. If you can just see like how much I have this, I want to reread this a billion times. This book is just so lyrical and magical, and the writing is just so amazing, and I just really need everybody to read this right now. Drop everything and read it. You're gonna sob, you're gonna be hysterical, you're gonna not be able to cope, you're not gonna be able to think about anything but them for the rest of your life. But I just need you to read this, okay? Please come and read this, and my DMs are open forever for this book. You can DM me at any time of the hour if you read this. I love Song of Achilles so much. Alright you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know down below, what are your 2021 best books of the year? What are you looking forward to reading? I want to know all of this. If you guys enjoyed this, please subscribe. It helps push my YouTube channel out into the algorithm and helps grow this community. So much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.